session is on nationalism in digital India, who defines and who decides. On the panel, we have Kiran Nagarkar. Nagarkar is a bilingual novelist, playwright, and screenplay writer. His novels include Sat Sakam, which is considered a landmark in Marathi literature, and according to some critics, reinvented Marathi, the language of state of Maharashtra. The book has been translated into English as 7 Sixes and 43. The rest of his novels are in English: Ravan and Eddie, God's Little Soldier. His novels are translated into Marathi, German, French, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese. Welcome to the festival, sir. The next speaker we have is Mr. Harsh Mander. Welcome to the festival, sir. I'll just quickly give an introduction. Mr. Harsh Mander, human rights and peace worker, writer, columnist, researcher, and teacher who works with survivors of mass violence, hunger, homeless persons, and street children. He's a director, Center for Equity Studies, and Special Commissioner to the Supreme Court of India in the Right to Food case. He's the founder of the campaigns Aman Biradri for Secularism, Peace, and Justice. Welcome to the festival, sir. It's a pleasure to have you. I'd like to mention Miss Nayantara Sahgal and welcome her to the stage and the festival. Miss Sahgal is the author of 9 novels, a collection of short stories, 6 non-fiction works, and wide-ranging literary and political commentary. She has received the Sahitya Akademi Award, the Sinclair Prize, and the Commonwealth Writers' Prize. She's a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and has held fellowships in the USA at the Bunting Institute, the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars, and the National Humanities Center. She's the founder member of the People's Union of Civil Liberties and served as its vice president during the 1980s. We'd like to welcome you and look forward to this excellent session. And the session is moderated by Ms. Rana Ayyub. Welcome, ma'am. Welcome to the session. Ms. Ayyub is this Indian journalist. She's previously worked as a journalist for Tehelka and is now an independent columnist. Ms. Rana Ayyub resigned from Tehelka in November 2013 to protest against the organization's handling of a sexual assault charge against its editor-in-chief, Mr. Tarun Tejpal. She has been critical of Narendra Modi-led Bharatiya Janata Party government, and we look forward to a great session again. Thank you. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, all our panelists, and yeah, let's get the session started.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. To begin with, I see this full house and mostly students, and I can't tell you how heartening this is, especially on a day like today when we're discussing a contentious issue like nationalism and patriotism, which I really believe that you need to have strong fundamentals for in the years to come. First things first, I'm really honored to have Nayantara Sahgal here on the dais. She offered to be, she was graceful enough to come as a replacement for Miss Nandita Haksar, who could not make it. And we are very privileged to have her here. And Kiran Nagarkar, of course, Harsh Mander. I mean, this is a panel of stalwarts, and this is something that you all, and especially the children sitting out here, you should consider yourself privileged to be listening to something like this. We are asked to discuss nationalism in digital space, and as some of you who are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, you must be aware that these days nationalism is defined by what you eat, by what you wear, by what you read, rather than the fundamental principles that were taught to us by our freedom fighters. Nationalism on social media, Twitter, Facebook, is defined by Twitter trends. Somebody's nationalist is the other person's, ideal case for sedition. I'd like to share a small anecdote. I wrote a book called Gujarat Files, Anatomy of a Cover-Up, which was an undercover investigation on Narendra Modi and Amit Shah. I also hold the notorious distinction of sending Amit Shah behind bars in 2010. Of course, as it happens today, he is now the president of the ruling party. I don't know what to say about it. I am sure the eminent panelists would like to take that forward. So I wrote that book, and I had to self-publish this book after 2 of the high-profile publication houses eased out because Mr. Modi had assumed power in 2014. As I speak today, Gujarat Files has sold 70,000 copies in 10 languages, perhaps a landmark for a self-published book. And for me, personally, writing this book was an act of nationalism. This year, when I went to Doha to speak about APJ Abdul Kalam, it was a discussion by the Indian Embassy in Doha to talk about nationalism. The moment I reached Doha airport, the Indian Embassy asked me to return. They canceled the debate because they were not aware that I was the speaker. And this is the state of affair. Today, as we sit here, nationalism has assumed different meanings. You have nationalists murdering those who eat one flesh, and people are. A 9-year-old was attacked today. Pehlu Khan was attacked in Alwar for allegedly being a cow smuggler. You have had the case of Akhlaq in Dadri. So I'm going to start this discussion today with Harsh. Harsh, we were discussing this yesterday about Pehlu Khan and this silence of us Indians generally, as citizens of this country. What do you feel? You went to meet Pehlu Khan's family. What did you gather? Where are we? Where is our moral compass as a nation?
I think starting with the moral compass is right bang where we need to start this discussion. There's a huge churning, and there are a lot of young people here, and you watch television and you look at your social media. The churning is about who does this country belong to, and on what terms. And the second is, who is it who loves this country? What does it amount, what does it take to loving your country? Just give a minute. Nandita ji has come, which is wonderful.
Please also welcome Nandita Haksar ji, who has finally graced us, and she's finally here. So it's so good to have an eminent panel here now.
So I was saying that we're living in times where there's a great churning about questions about who does India belong to, what does it mean to be Indian, what does it mean to love your country, and who is against this country, and who doesn't belong to this country. There are questions of this kind. And I think that this is a question which is not a new one. It goes back to the years of the freedom struggle, in fact, to years before that as well. And for many of us, the central idea of India is one that this is a country that belongs equally to each of us who choose to make this your country and your home. There are no conditions for you to belong to this country. You do not have to conform to belong. You are free to follow the God you worship or to worship no God. You're free to speak the language you choose to. You're free to dress the way you choose to. You're free to love the person you choose to, whether it is a person of your own gender or any other gender. You're free to be yourself and to belong equally. I think that is the central idea that many of us, everyone here who's sitting on this side of the platform, wants to uphold. But it is contested. It is a contested idea. There is another idea for India, that India is primarily a country of the Hindu majority, and in order to belong to this country, you have to be respectful of, and in a sense subordinate to, what are seen to be the Hindu beliefs, cultures and sentiments. This is a hugely problematic idea, and I want your young people to understand why it is a problematic idea. Firstly, this was not the India that Mahatma Gandhi and all the freedom fighters fought for. This was a country where they fought for an India which belonged equally to Hindus, Muslims, atheists, Jains, Christians, and so on and so forth, to the Adivasi communities and so on. But equally, there's a further problem: who decides what is Hindu? Because Hinduism is not a faith of a single text, a single church, and so you can be Hindu by believing in one God, you can be Hindu by believing in multiple gods, you can be Hindu, eating beef, not eating beef, you can be Hindu in many different ways, and yet there's not only a command from this alternative view that you have to conform to what is Hindu, but they will decide what is Hindu. So you would say, for instance, that that to be Hindu is to worship Ram, and it is a certain idea of Ram. After all, Ram was, which Ram are we talking about? The Ram whose name was on Gandhiji's lips when Nathuram Godse killed him, or the Ram in whose name Nathuram Godse killed Mahatma Gandhi. They're both speaking about Ram. So which Ram are we speaking about? And if somebody says, I say Ram was born in Ayodhya and you have to be respectful, okay, my mosque is there, you build the temple. No, I say Ram was born under the central dome of that mosque, and I say it, so you have to be respectful and you have to let it go. I say don't kill the cow, even though many Hindus may eat a cow or not eat a cow. Now this whole thing has been created an environment where to love your nation means to hate. It is obligatory to hate, and we see the consequences of it. And you talked about Pehlu Khan, and I'll just finish with that. Pehlu Khan, for the young friends here, was a poor, marginal farmer with 1 acre land who was trying to keep his family going. The Ramzan month is coming. There's a demand for milk, so he went to a cattle market, bought a pregnant cow and was bringing her back. And a group of people blocked the road and said, because he was visibly Muslim, he had a white beard, and they dragged him out, they dragged out his sons. They let the Hindu driver of the truck go. Now, anyone with slightest of senses says is that a cow who is pregnant will not be being taken to slaughter. It doesn't make economic sense. She was a pregnant cow with a young calf. She was obviously being taken for milk. You lynch the old man and his sons. The spine is broken, and the man is dead. And then the first response of the state administration is to register cases. Please note, register cases against Pehlu Khan and his family for being cattle smugglers, and so they still have cases against them. And here you have this devastated family created by hate, by people who describe themselves as nationalists. I believe that if you love your country, you have to love the people of your country, and you have to be compassionate.
Harsh, one more question that follows this is, when I was speaking to you yesterday, Harsh spoke about how Pehlu Khan's family went out of the way to speak about their nationalist credentials, how their family fought Babur.
Yes.
My question is that why is it that a non-Hindu in this country, for instance, in this case, Pehlu Khan's family has to go out of the way to prove their patriotism? I wrote a column for Hindustan Times this morning saying that I have the added responsibility of not just proving that I'm a patriot, but also despite being a Muslim being a patriot, or despite being a Christian being a patriot, or despite being a Dalit being a patriot. What sense do you get? How was it embarrassing when Pehlu Khan's family was describing their patriotism to you?
When we went there, through that day, our eyes and our hearts, eyes were full, our hearts were heavy. I can't tell you what you see. You see this old mother. You cannot understand why somebody should kill you, or kill your father, or kill your son. For no reason. They're strangers. They never knew this person. They killed him because he was Muslim. And they kept telling us, but we love our nation so much. Humse zyada watan parast koi nahi hai. So I want to say, please, you don't have to say this. They said, nahi, हमारे तो जो पूर्वज थे, वो राणा संगा के साथ लड़े थे बाबर के खिलाफ, और वो दिखाता है कि हम कितने वतन परस्त हैं. And we want to say, this is not a discussion that is important to this country. You are Watan Parast if you adhere to the values of our constitution, which is liberty, equality, justice and fraternity. There is no other obligation that you have to prove your patriotism. But we have created an India in which the Muslim has now been constructed in a Hindu majority country as a second class citizen, and the other And the Muslim, by definition, is a terrorist, is a temple breaker, is a cow killer, is a beef eater, is a serial divorcee, is a sexual predator. And if you are Muslim, Rana Ayyub, you have to prove that you are none of these in order to establish that you also are an Indian. This is not the India that all the young people here
I promise to
should
never
belong
post
to.
any pictures of beefsteak on my social media. That's a bigger crime. Before I carry on with my discussion with Kiran Nagarkar, let me introduce Ms. Nandita Haksar. She's a human rights lawyer, campaigner, teacher, and writer. Ms. Haksar is intensely engaged with problems of nation building in consonance with democratic norms and principles. She has taken up cases of Kashmiris accused of terrorism, Burmese refugees in exile in India, Sikh and Muslim victims of state violence, workers in public sector fighting against privatization, and more recently, the migrant workers from the Northeast. She is certainly a contender to discuss nationalism right now with us. But before I go to and speak to Nandita and Nayantara, Kiran, I want to ask you, we were discussing this yesterday, and you were discussing parallels vis-a-vis nationalism when it comes to Trump's America and Modi's India. In Trump's America, when people were allegedly told that you cannot enter our country, there were thousands of lawyers who were willing to support those people who were there at the airports. Where is that solidarity in India? Where is that moral compass in India? Where is the common man in India right now? Why doesn't he speak out?
It's a shame that things are sitting right at the back, but I would like to come back one of these days with all of the same panel and really hear their views on things. But going back to her question, what I find bizarre is that the American president just now is so busy telling us.
Can you hear him? No?
Can you hear me now? Okay. My words are, of course, priceless. But the American president is constantly telling you, we'll make America great again. And it has always been one of the questions that I have never been able to ask him, how exactly whatever he's doing is making America great. He's throwing out the Muslims from 6 countries. None of the Muslims from these 6 countries has ever been responsible for an act of terror or done any violence. And anyway, just tell me about India. I guess we are not going to be forbidden from going there, but we are not immune from terrorism. Indian Hindus are as capable of terrorism as any other community in India. But does that mean that the country is a terrorist country? This is nonsense. So are we going to, as Indians, start thinking on our own and ask questions? Because questions are something that this government absolutely hates. And which is why we have to keep on pestering them for answers. You tell me, hate is one of the things that this regime, which is ruling us, it prides itself on. And what it does is that it literally breeds hate, and that is why you have these murders not only of the Muslims, but of the Dalits also. So what are we doing about it? When one instance that you saw, and all of us have been talking about it, is that when the Muslims from those 6 countries were forbidden to enter America, it is absolutely astounding. Almost every non-Trump citizen of America went to the airport. The lawyers and everybody went to the airport because they said this is an extremely unjust kind of thing. So my question to myself, to my panelists, and especially to all of you, and because you're the students and the future of India, the question is for you also. When are we going to get up and go and say, either if you're from here in Dehradun, to the most important place here, which is the parliament or whatever you have, or a legislature, when are we going to go there and say, you're never, never going to touch a Muslim again, and you're never, never going to ostracize people just because they have a different opinion from yours?
Are you a proud Indian nationalist, Kiran?
I caught again. Yes, I am a proud Indian, but now that I have to be honest, not in front of the elders, but in front of the students there, I have to tell you, I don't give a damn about nationalism. What I want, and I want desperately, I don't want India to be a great country. I want India to be a good country, which cares for its people and cares for every denizen of every country in the world. What do we do with greatness? You know what greatness does to us? We just want to conquer other people. That's all.
Nayantara, typical Kiran style. Nayantara, when you returned your Sahitya Academy Award to protest the lynching of Akhlaq in Dadri, there were many detractors, many who called themselves nationalists on social media, said that there was an intolerance brigade which was trying to malign the reputation of India. As we sit here, there has been another murder of Pehlu Khan, again, the Gau Mata. I mean, the Gau Mata is a lot more precious than a human life. How do you weigh in on this?
Hello everybody. First, let me make one correction, Rana. I returned my Sahitya Akademi Award not on the Dadri incident, which came later, but because 3 writers had been murdered. The first one was, I think, from Karnataka, and then 2 from Maharashtra. All 3 rationalists. One of them was an Academy Award winner. And at that time, I expected that the Sahitya Akademi, which is the guardian of literature, would say something, that you can't murder anybody, and you certainly can't murder writers. But the Sahitya Akademi remained chup. Not one word came out of that supposed to be autonomous organization. And it was on that account that I wrote to them saying that you are unmaking India. All that India has stood for and built up since independence, you are taking it apart, and therefore I'm returning my award to you. Then came the Dadri lynching. And that widened the debate. Many writers joined. I think 100 writers returned their awards. 200 British writers marched in favor of what we had done. Writers from 150 countries around the world supported us at a PEN conference. So that's the story of the reason why I returned the award. And then you asked me...
How do you weigh in on this new idea of nationalism? Does that disturb you?
I call it a piece of nonsense. And I'll tell you why. There is no need for a country which has been a nation for 70 years to suddenly start shouting about nationalism. You're already a nation. Why do you need nationalism? And the ironic part of all this screeching about nationalism is that those who are shouting about it today, the ruling party, were nowhere to be seen when Indians were fighting for freedom to become a nation. These people were sound asleep safely in their beds. It was other Indians, known and unknown, who faced the guns and bullets of the British, who spent years of their lives in jail. My father, in fact, died of his 4th imprisonment under British rule. So what are they yelling about now? You know, they are just talking about a subject that doesn't need any discussion. We're already a nation. We don't need nationalism. Today, it is a drill, as the other panelists have said, to make people fall in line, to say, you will think as I do. You must speak as I do. You must support the causes I do. And, you know, unity does not mean conformity. They are confusing this issue as all fascist governments do. And today we have a fascist regime in power. I want to say that very clearly. And in a situation where Muslims are being targeted, brutally murdered, I want to say I am half Muslim by culture. As a North Indian who has lived in the UP, born and brought up in the UP, how can I not be half Muslim by culture? Because that is the ground it is not only just the cradle of Hinduism, it is the location of some of Islam's greatest monuments. We have from the UP the tradition of Urdu poetry, the Taj Mahal, and not to mention Shami Kebab and Rogan Josh. All these things are part of our Islamic heritage. Now, these two cultures combined in me. Therefore, how can they be separated? Together, they make me what I am, an Indian.
Well said, Nayantara. And while we are on freedom struggle, those who were nowhere to be found during the freedom movement today are the flag bearers of patriotism, unfortunately. Nandita, you have written books like Framing Jilani, Hanging Afzal, Patriotism in the Time of Terror. Today, where we stand, we love Kashmir. We call Kashmir our own, but feels like Kashmiris are not our own people. You know, we want that physical boundary. You call stone pelters as terrorists. You do not want to talk about the injustices being carried out in Kashmir. Where does a Kashmiri fit in this contour of nationalism today? Because every day on television channel, a Kashmiri is being projected as somebody who raises a Pakistani flag, whose allegiance lies with the other country, and who's a thankless Indian who takes our money and still is thankless and is not, you know. So how do you see this? When you see these debates on television, when you see these intellectuals talking about Kashmir and our Kashmir, how do you weigh in on this?
I'd like to answer that, and I will, but I think it is nationalism in a digital age. So can I relate that question?
Please do.
But I want to begin because I see my ex-school people here, and I see Welham Girls School. Is that true? My blue dupatta. And I want to, it's coming, I'm not diversing, the reason is that when I joined Welham Girls High School in 1963, one of the first things my house, I remember woodpeckers, I think it was, the house mistress asked my mother, I was 9, and she was asked that, Mrs. Haksar, who are the boys she may write to? And who are the boys that she may meet? And my mother sort of looked down and she said, whoever she wants. And the teachers were horrified. And despite this, every day they would sit under that tree in number 12. I don't know whether that number 12 Rajpura is still there. And they would read our letters. And I still feel very angry. I'm 63 now, and I still have these grudges, you know, this is terrible. I can't let go. Now, I want to know in a digital age how they will supervise. That's the point that it kept coming to my mind when I was talking about, when I was asked on digital age. Because today, it is not only little girls who are supervised, but entire nations. So I think one of the questions why this is that how is it digital technology which is responsible for fascism and Trump in America and Brexit in England and Modi here? And it is true that Mr. Modi has used his Twitter and Facebook and all this social media. The second question that came to me when I was asked is that now there are 4 of us, four, all above the age of 60. A little older, maybe I'm the youngest here. Not you, I'm just saying us. You're the younger? Okay. Harsh is younger. 60 or not? 62. Okay, 62. Therefore, we are 9% of India's population. Very rare. I don't think any of us are very good with the social media. Why have we been called, and what can we contribute to this debate other than reminiscing about the India we dreamt about and we hoped for and we cry about every day, that what has happened to India? And I decided that this was an opportunity to understand that instead of feeling miserable. Of course, I'm still feeling miserable, but still. And I would like to then share with you the Kashmir problem. I never looked upon as myself as a Kashmiri Pandit. Obviously, my name is a Kashmiri Pandit name. And I was brought up, like Nayantara ji said, it's like a UP. I thought I was vaguely UP. I don't know what that meant. But I was Indian. And I was brought up as an Indian, an abstract Indian, and my India included everybody. And my 8-year-old sister once came to my mother and said, ki hum Hindu hain ki Muslim? And my mother's answer is, ye wahayat question aise kaise pooch sakti ho? Now, this was our upbringing. I'm not saying it's necessarily good or bad. It's a strange upbringing. But with this upbringing, when the parliament was attacked in 2000, December 13, BJP government was in power. And a young teacher, Mr. Gilani, who was teaching Arabic, and as I always said, he was Muslim Kashmiri teaching Arabic. I mean, you can't get worse than that. He was caught for attacking parliament. And the question in my mind was, when I was asked to do the case, to defend this terrorist, and a lot of people asked me that, Mr. Haksar's daughter, patriotic Kashmiri Pandit, why did you take up this case? In my heart, and I know what my fellow panelist says, I know what Rana would feel, I know you all clapped, strange and stupid me believes in Indian democracy. I believed in it, and I said I will prove that I will get this man acquitted. Not by magic, but by work, by our ideology. And that's why these 60-year-olds matter. Because there is an ideology, there's a politics which I think is still relevant. And that's why I took up that case, the Kashmiri case. Now, the point of that, I'm not going into the legalities and illegalities. I believe him to be innocent. I believe he was not part of the conspiracy to attack the parliament. Every single newspaper boycotted, except later Anjali Modi, who wrote in Hindu, and which was a great contribution. We had no media support. We had a BJP government. We had people who hated Kashmiris, and that atmosphere was vile. Anyone who supported the Shiv Sena was physically attacking. Despite that, we ran a campaign with posters. I personally put up 5,000 posters all over Delhi twice, that is 10,000. 5,000 posters on every mosque in Delhi. And I said that I want to tell, and this was deliberate, to say to Muslims that even in this atmosphere, there are some of us who can do this. And it had its effect. And I believe the campaign worked. And from setting a death penalty, a Kashmiri Muslim accused of attacking parliament, sentenced to death, he was acquitted. Now that's a good thing. But Afzal Guru, 2001, by which time RSS was taking electronic shakas. They take their Mr. Ram Madhav, one of the one faces on the television, he is an engineer from Andhra. He took electronic shakas. By which time Mr. Modi's, that national, what is it called, the social media cell was working full time. And at that point of time, I want to tell you, Mr. Modi had set it up in 2005. By the time I got Gilani acquitted, it was 2006. His Twitter account is 21.6 million followers. These 26.1 million followers do not believe in the India that we believed in. They think that we are stupid. They think that there has to be a Hindu India, it has to be a strong India. And then by the time the 2014, Mr. Modi had set up National Digital Operations Center. The Congress party or any other party, the Communist Party, the Socialist Party, the NGOs, nobody bothered to counter this. I have some. So the question is, for me, and how they mobilized and made Afzal Guru an election issue. They made it such an important. I felt that we had mobilized the country for the first time when in university campuses we were talking about a man like Afzal Guru. We had created space for that. And that space was totally closed. And a vicious campaign was run. And finally, because of that vicious, and I met the President of India twice, and he gave us audience, and he kept saying, why have you come twice? And I said, Afzal Guru is involved. We didn't say he was not involved. We said he's involved, but he should not be given death penalty. He was hanged, and the repercussions are till now, we can see what the BJP is doing. And they're still using Afzal Guru. Afzal Guru was a totally anti-Pakistani man. In his letter to me, and I published it in the book, it is very clear. He says, I don't like Pakistan. I think Kashmiris are between India and Pakistan. But my question is that how is it that the social media was used so effectively for such a vile and vicious campaign to the point of today, Baranwani and the stone pelters are called terrorists. What happened? All that work that we did for 4 or 5 years was wiped out. Can we blame the digital technology? And that's the question which I have been going through in my mind. And can we say that technology is responsible for this fascism? Who stopped us from using it?
Absolutely.
Who said that Nandita Haksar should not have a blog? I first press myself, and then that question is to the people in my age, and it's a question to younger people. Why are we not mobilizing?
Nandita, I wanted to ask you specifically, and I hate to do this, but there is a sense of curiosity in me, especially as somebody who really is on social media 24/7, who loves using Twitter and Facebook, and is one of the most abused person on Twitter. Every time I talk about Kashmiris, the first question that is asked of me is, you talk about Kashmiris, but what about the Kashmiri Pandit exodus? I know I do not want to treat you as a Kashmiri Pandit, but as a nationalist. But why this? Do you think it is justified to ask this question?
You know, I'll say one thing. Yes, it is. And I will own up to my own mistakes. And let me start with my own self. Let me not generalize. For once, I'll talk about myself. As I said, that upbringing. I'm very respectful for my parents. But you know, this idea of an abstract India doesn't exist. We are culturally what we are. We may reject it. You can't pretend Hindus and Muslims are all one, because they're not. In my Vellum Girls High School, in my class, there was one Muslim girl. So this discrimination against Muslims doesn't start with the BJP. Let's not blame BJP for everything. In my college in Delhi School of Economics, there was one girl. By the way, both Romana Habibullah in my class was from a communist kind of background, and Shireen Mehdi, her father was CPI. There were no Muslims in our classes. When I did Gilani case and the JNU students were helping me, Jitinder, I'm naming him, he was a student from JNU. And Bismillah Gilani, Gilani's brother, was going to spend the night. First time a Sardar said, "Pehli dafa ek Musalman mere kamre mein so raha hai." 150 million Muslim citizens, and a student in JNU doesn't know what to do with a Muslim. So I said, please tell him which side is east. I mean, I'm telling you kind of conversations, it's bizarre, but I said, please tell him east, and please koi carpet de dena, mat de dena, prayer karne ke liye. At least you do that. Acha, you know, if you are 150 million people and we don't even know what to do. So this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now to answer your question, in 1990, one of the first fact-finding teams which went to Kashmir, I was there. I went and did, because the Kashmiri Muslims were being killed, they were being tortured. But I went first to Gita Bhavan. In Gita Bhavan, which is the camp for the Kashmiri Pandits, I saw, and I wrote about it then and now, that the Kashmiri Pandit communists, Kashmiri Muslim communists were in two different camps.
Yeah.
I feel very ashamed till this day, and I have had no answers. From both the communist parties I asked, why were the CPM comrades, if they are my comrades, why are we not sharing one tent? Having said that, our report did not talk about the Kashmiri Pandits. But having done this story on Kashmiri Pandits, I realized that yes, the Kashmiri Pandits as a community have played a lot of negative role. And there's a huge gap between Kashmiri Pandits and Kashmiri Muslims today. But their suffering as a human being, as people who have had to leave their houses, who have had a lot of terror attacks, they have been terrorized. It is not only Jagmohan. Jagmohan played a very big role. I think we should have been more compassionate. That is at the human level. Politically, by isolating them, we have pushed them into BJP.
Absolutely.
And that's what we did wrong.
Yeah. And Nandita made a very important point about, digital age, and most of them do not use the social media platforms, etc. And that's something the Congress used to say in the 2014 election, that the BJP was running a very good social media campaign, a very effective social media Twitter campaign. The question is, what stopped the Congress from doing it? The same goes for all of us. When we say that there are people who are hijacking our narrative in social media, the question is, why aren't we, the common people, speaking for it, writing our blogs, tweeting, Facebook? In today's day and age, Digital India has opened up platforms for us. That brings me to my, perhaps the last question before I open the floor to the audience. When we're talking about sedition and JNU and campus politics, one name that cropped up 2 years ago was Kanhaiya Kumar, and of course the alleged Azadi Brigade, which Times Now wants to tell us. So most of us, you're either the Azadi Brigade or the Nationalist. So, and the word sedition kept popping very often. Sedition, nationalism, Kashmir ke tukde honge. What is sedition, Harsh? As a lawyer, what is sedition? For people, for children sitting here, they are very young minds, which, I want you to tell them what exactly constitutes sedition, and are they in any act being seditious in today's day and age?
Sedition is very simply a crime that was introduced by the British, which was really the opposite of being a patriot, where you're basically acting against your country. And it is a crime for which you could be in jail for as much as 10 years. It's a crime. It's a section that many of us believe should not have remained on the statute books of independent India. But what it is being used for today is to say that if you are criticizing the government, and we are living in particularly strange times where the leader, the government and the country have been made into one. And if you have a criticism, a disagreement with a decision of the government or of your prime minister, it is interpreted to be an act against the country for which you can go to jail, which is what happened with the students. So when Kanhaiya Kumar and the other JNU students, on Afzal Guru's hanging day, they had a meeting to raise questions about whether the hanging was just or unjust.
Could I just interrupt? Kanhaiya was not involved in the meeting.
Yeah.
That's very important.
No, I don't think it is important. I don't think it is important. I feel that, let us assume that the students were raising questions about the justice or injustice of Afzal Guru's hanging. My response, and I wrote a public letter to the Home Minister at that time, I said that if questioning the justice of Afzal Guru's hanging is an act of sedition, I would like to draw your attention to articles that I have written which have raised precisely those questions. And if the students have committed an act of sedition, I demand that I should also be charged with the same act of sedition, and I should also be arrested. That is what I've learned of civil disobedience from Mahatma Gandhi. And of course, they didn't. As what civil disobedience tells us, if there's an unjust law, either you change the law or you punish me under that law. But they did neither. But there's just one other thing that I very quickly wanted to say. You know, the love of your country is also something that is written into the Constitution. And there's a word, we talk in the preamble about justice, liberty, equality, and there's a fourth word which is called fraternity. And it is fraternity for upholding the dignity of the individual and for the unity of the country. And I do believe that it is very important for young people to understand what that means. It means that we are unified not because we are all frightened and we have to obey and we have to conform. We are frightened because we love and belong to each other and with each other. And so if Pehlu Khan has been killed unjustly, it is a matter that troubles me. That if a a boy in Kashmir is being blinded by pellet guns, he is like my son, and I will speak out. And that is that idea of fraternity that needs to bind us. That is what we saw in America when spontaneously, when that order was passed, hundreds of ordinary Americans went out. They went to their Muslim neighbors and said, don't worry, we are with you. They put up posters saying, if being a Muslim is unpatriotic, we declare that we are all Muslims now. I want to hear that voice from Indians, ordinary Indians, Hindu, Muslim, Christian today. And if we remain silent, it is either that we are scared or we don't care, or we actually share those sentiments of hatred.
Before I open the floor for questions, there's one just small point that I wanted to add personally. There's when the discussion, the subject of discussion came to me, it said patriotism in digital India, nationalism in digital India, and I think it's quite pertinent to be discussing this in today's day and age and the times that we live in, because Twitter trends these days are deciding the news headlines of the evening, whether we like it or not. You have every day the BJP or the Congress trending one particular issue. I have been at the receiving end of it when I broke 2 fake encounter story on Ishrat Jahan and Sohrabuddin, especially in the Gujarat fake encounters. For 2 good days, there was a hashtag which said Rana Ayyub CD. Now CD is open to all kinds of, you can think whatever you want. So alleged Modi followers wrote the most obnoxious stuff to me, photoshopping my image with nude bodies, etc. And mind you, and which is why I wrote a very poignant open letter to the Prime Minister. I said, sir, most of the handles that you follow on social media, you are the Prime Minister of the country, are abusing me and those who speak like me. Is it not your responsibility to send out a strong signal to those who want to impose their idea of nationalism on the country? With this, I want to open the floor for questions. Please keep your questions sharp and to the point. Yes, the lady there.
Hi, I'm Megha and this is Aman, and we come from an education initiative that we want to start in Dehradun called the Movement Labs. So our basic priority is to help kids relate the knowledge that they get in school, which is amazing and it's abundant. But the only reason why we are not able to question is because we are not able to understand the concepts. Like Sir said, our preamble, it promises us some rights. And as a class 8 students, I had it by heart. I knew we the people of India, having solemnly resolved, blah, 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 the entire thing. But by the time I'm 25, I realized the notion and the ideas of those words now. But because when I was 16, I had a different idea. I want kids to realize how to correlate their subjects, how to correlate patriotism, nationalism to business interests, to political interests, and how their choices are not really personal. It's based on a lot of things that happen around them, their culture, the media, they
Agreed. Yeah.
things. So I just want to know from all you guys that how to structure a particular discourse in such an audience where they really don't have the outlook as such, to question such a big thing as a nation, but they still should understand that word, what words to use, what language to use.
Answer that question.
I wanted my older friends to also respond. Other friends to respond. But I just want to say, I think we have to talk about compassion. We have to talk about caring. Ultimately, let's forget about who was Hindu, who was Muslim, who was homosexual, who was heterosexual, who is, speaks this language, that language. We're just talking about human beings. We're talking about whether, is it appropriate that somebody should be trolled, should be raped, should be killed, only because of their identity. What if that person was your brother, sister, son, father, wife? So I think that we need to bring this discussion into a much more level of humanism in our conversations with young people.
Right.
Could I counter when in for a discussion?
Sorry?
Can I counter that?
Sure. Please
as a
go ahead.
discussion?
She wants to counter that, yeah. Just one
No,
second.
as a debate. Because I understand from where Harsh is coming. That's why I said my parents had brought me up with this viewpoint. But I think that's a wrong viewpoint. I think children must be told their differences. The life experience of a Muslim, of a Sikh, of a Naga, Northeast, is very different. They experience their Indianness very differently. It's not only Muslims who are attacked. In fact, yesterday I was sitting with Nagas in Dehradun, and they had come, we had a meeting. Their experience is that they're totally alienated. I don't see any of them, they said they'll come, but they said, no, they're intellectual discussions, we don't do it. So we have to acknowledge these differences. We have to tell children, and children are very wise, they understand. They will understand the differences, and they must respect it. Vellum girls cannot say we are all brothers when there is no brother or sister with us. So why was there no Urdu taught? You know? So these are the questions which I think we need to confront, that this country is extremely divided, extremely unequal, very ugly, and there are many things to be proud of, but there are many things to be ashamed of, and how do we confront them?
Point taken. The lady there with the question.
Hi, my name is Atre. Now, before I go on, I think this question has come from the fact that I have a equally strange upbringing and I'm extremely proud of it. Now, my name is Atre Goswami, and when I say that out, my first, the question I, of course, here is about my name. Then I'm asked, oh, are you a Maharashtrian? We are talking about Hindus, Muslims, and so on. Then I am told, I say that no, I am born in Kolkata, brought up in Delhi. Oh, that means you're a Bengali. No, I am an Indian. Now, nationalism, as for me, is something that should bind the entire thought. We are only talking Hindu, Muslims. I mean, here we are even divided in terms of our, states. We are a nation. I mean, why don't we address that?
I couldn't possibly disagree with what you're saying. But just to defend something slightly, we are perhaps one of the very few countries in the world which has 24 languages. And there are many authors who are promoting the notion that if you're from Maharashtra, then you should be speaking Marathi and not be taught anything else. Since I happen to be a Maharashtrian, I find this argument appalling. And instead of being terribly proud of the fact that we have 24 languages and a child picks up 4 languages without any effort, that is one point that I just wanted to, as I said, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. But we have these, almost from childhood, we have been inculcated with these notions that the South Indians speak, at least in Marathi, you say, Andugundu. We do not think of ourselves as a country together. And which is why I think people are able to, when the Prime Minister or other people start speaking in these terms, they're able to create havoc. And as to how you're going to deal with the problem, at the moment, I'm not at all sure, but I would like to come back to it.
Is there any...
I would really like you
yes,
to maybe
sir. Please
someday.
go ahead
Thank
with
you
your
so much.
question.
Hello. Yeah. So there are certain notions that flourish in our nation, such as like we live, like the Hindi name of our country, Hindustan, and then our national language is Hindi, whereas India doesn't have any national language. That's what people have this notion, and these notions, the government issued courses that we have, the Hindu literature, donate in these notions. Which so do you people think that these things needs to be censored a bit and then changed a bit? The government issued courses and everything, the courses, these things, because they help in making up these ideas in the people.
Do you want to answer that?
Well, I do not belong to the digital age, as Nandita knows. And I don't think the digital age is of the least importance when it comes to the issue of electing a government. You may say that Mr. Modi and his companions have got a huge audience, but there's a much bigger audience that hasn't acquired the knowledge of how to proceed digitally. Many more Indians are non-digital than are digital. So what I think matters about whether a government is popular or not, or whether it gets elected or not, ultimately is what is happening on the ground. Any politician may make marvelous speeches and have great knowledge technologically, but if the man living in a village has a broken road, no water, and is attacked for reasons which he can't understand, he's not going to think the government is a very good government. I know from my childhood that the man who made India a nation and who threw out the British Empire was a man who spoke to audiences sitting on the ground, cross-legged. He was a scrawny old man in a langot. He had given up wearing the clothes of his privileged class and wore a langot because most Indians wore a langot. He spoke in a voice which was not heard very far, and microphones didn't always work. But he galvanized the whole of India to fight for freedom.
Absolutely.
So I know times have changed. I think the technology has advanced. It is of great value. It is also of great disvalue because it's wiping out some of the most important things that we need to address. We are becoming highly technologically advanced, highly militarily advanced, bigger, better, deadlier. We are buying every day.
Right.
What
I want
for?
the last, yes, thank you so much. I want the last question to be from one of the girls behind. You really have to represent Dehradun. Come on.
Good evening, everyone. Actually, I want to talk about, again, nationalism from the ideological point of view. So considering that our upbringing often changes our opinion about what's right and what's wrong, and considering that our families play a big role in it, and that it's often difficult to change your perception later, how do you actually think that we can approach everybody from the ideological point of view? And also considering that in such a diverse country like India, more than the differences of race or caste, the factional differences play a big role, and that when people get separated into factions, it's natural that they tend to oppress the smaller factions. So how can we possibly change the ideology of the country?
I think that's a beautiful question, and in that sense, you know, those of us who are above 60 here were lucky. We grew up in a Nehruvian India where we did have different conversations. I mean, genuinely, what Nandita says, her mother told her, I studied in a school called Mayo College. My principal was a British gentleman. The prayer of our school was Lab Pe Aati Hai Dua, written by Iqbal, and nobody thought that was strange. I mean, that's still my favorite hymn, even today. But you all are growing up in times which are much more divided. Many of you in your drawing room, in your, sitting with your parents will actually not get the same kind of communication about equality, about justice, and about fraternity. And I think it's an even greater challenge for you all to apply your own minds and your own hearts about what is right, because even your parents on this issue may not be right.
I'm so glad you actually brought that point. Lab pe aati hai dua ban ke tamanna meri, zindagi shamma ki surat ho khudaya meri. It's a very beautiful line which used to be sung in pre-independent India and post-independent India, also in most schools. Of course, in today's day and age, in today, it's only sung in madrasas, and the neo-nationalism concept, of course, to introduce this in schools, a poem which is only about the value of education and humanity, will have no space. But I believe, as somebody whose forefathers have had no role in the freedom struggle, who has come from the a progressive writers' family, I don't believe, like many others, that I need to wear my badge of patriotism. And I think today's discussion and your participation proves that there is still space for a healthy discussion on democracy, on nationalism, and let's leave it with this optimistic note. Thank you all so much for Sure. She wants to make one point.
No, I just want to say we've been speaking of differences and that Indians are all very different state-wise, language-wise, religion-wise. I want to say that it is of the utmost importance to preserve those differences. We will be united not when we are forced into conformity, but by people who are loyal to the same ideals and ideas. And those differences are what make us a unique civilization in today's world. We don't want to get rid of those differences. I'll tell you one little story I heard many, many years ago. about an author called Pearl Buck. I don't know if you have heard of her. She used to write novels about China. She was an American writer. And one day her daughter came to her and said, "Mother, there's a gentleman here to see you." So Pearl Buck said, "Is he American or Chinese?" And her daughter said, "I don't know, Mother. Shall I go and ask him?" She had not been taught to think that people have, undividable personalities, or that one is better than another. All people were human beings, whether they were Americans or Chinese or whatever they were. And that was a lesson that Pearl Buck had taught her children.
Yeah, please. He wants to make one last point before we wrap up.
And I'll be short. Please remember, your parents can sometimes be wrong. Your relatives and teachers can sometimes be wrong. And please don't forget that you can be very wrong also. So that gives lots of room for us to have different opinions.
Thank you all so much for this wonderful discussion and having us here. Thank you so much, Dehradun.
I'd like to call upon Mr. Rishi Suri to please felicitate our authors and the moderator. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Can we have a big round of applause for all of them, please? And some cheers.